One of the classic images for transition in the Bible is crossing water. Jacob crosses the river Jabbok as he takes on the new name of Israel. The children of Israel cross the Red Sea into the wilderness and cross the river Jordan into the Promised Land. Jesus and the disciples frequently take boats across the Sea of Galilee into new ministries. Crossings signify endings on one shore followed by beginnings on another, and in between often come ordeals. Faith tells us that God's love and care will be with us, and that the Spirit's guidance and strength will help us, and that God will make a way where there was no way across the waters, leading to peace and joy and a better world. So let us worship together in this hope, all in the same boat of this church, wherever we may be. Humans have always found it challenging to navigate life changes. That's why the scriptures offer so much wisdom about them. Because we cannot evolve, we cannot be transformed and transform the world around us into the realm of God on earth if we are not skilled at change. Transitions require crossing from the end of one thing through all the emotional and logistical struggle of the in-between time to arrive at the other shore and a new beginning. And the same principles apply whether the transition is graduation or marriage or illness or a new job or moving or becoming parents or aging or dying. Whatever change you are going through, this wisdom can help you reach the other shore with peace and a readiness for what comes next. Psalm 107 reminds us of God's steadfast love that redeems us from trouble. Storms arise, the psalm says, on the waters of life, a calamity of waves. Our courage melts. We stagger, seasick, disoriented, unstable in the chaos of adversity. Ships founder that we have constructed, our coping mechanisms, the institutions we have counted on, the behavior of others or the behavior of the earth, all turn upside down in a sudden squall. And we see no way out of the maelstrom. We get dashed to rock bottom. And then the psalm says, they cried to God in their trouble. God brought them out from their distress and made the storm be still and hushed the waves of the sea. Then they were glad because they had quiet, and God brought them to their desired haven. The other day, my stepdaughter Marion was doing a crossword puzzle, and the clue was a pastor's advice. She knows me, and she got it right away. As any child in this congregation would, the word, of course, was
pray.
Pray. Right. Times come when human powers fail us, when reaching out to the higher power of the Spirit is the only thing that can connect us to the steadfast love and redemption that we need in order to cross over to the other side. But we need to trust that this really works. 12-step groups have saved millions of people from the storms and shipwrecks of addiction. The first 3 steps are to admit that we have reached a point where we are powerless to change. And second, to believe that a power higher than ourselves can restore us. And third, to entrust our will and our life to that higher power's care. We see this in the gospel story. Jesus says, let us cross over to the other side. The slogan in the book of Hebrews Jesus Christ, the same yesterday, today, and forever, does not mean that Jesus is against change or that life with Jesus doesn't change. It means that he is constantly urging us to make the same change over and over, to cross to the new shore that greater love and God's realm on earth require. Leaving the boat behind, they took him with them in the boat. Change, growth, evolution can mean leaving the crowd behind. We need to be prepared to be different and to feel the loss and loneliness that can come. Of course, we might also feel relief and rest to be away from the crowd. Leaving the crowd is an ending. In one way or another, we will have feelings about it. It will be something we have to adjust to. And Jesus, the embodiment of the Spirit's compassion, will be with us all the way. Although once we leave the old shore, storms may arise, and it may seem as if he is asleep in the stern. We may feel afraid in a dark night of soul, like the disciples who prayed, "Teacher, do you not care that we are dying?" Even prayers of anger or despair can connect us to the Spirit. The waves may still be crashing, we may still be drowning, but at our core, we can find the peace that comes through faith, the faith that God's steadfast love and redeeming power are with us. Jesus enabled the disciples to reach that other side, which in this case meant moving from the Jewish to the Gentile shore. Jesus led the disciples to overcome racism, to overcome the exclusion of people who were shut out by religious and social institutions. He asked his followers to risk their standing with the crowd and with the authorities, because the realm of God's universal and unconditional love was waiting on the other side. Biblical scholars point out that one of the reasons why the disciples may have panicked was that they didn't really understand the purpose of the trip. They weren't on board. They were in the boat, but they weren't on board. William Bridges writes in Managing Transitions that understanding transitions is the first step toward managing them. It helps to have a sense both of the problem that a sea crossing is trying to address and the purpose of the specific journey. So the problem Jesus faced was that people were shut out from the beloved community. And his purpose was to bring them the good news that a divided humanity could be healed and live as one, and then to show them the way. A shared vision helps in times of transition. Moses painted the picture of a promised land flowing with milk and honey, and that kept people going for 40 years. Jesus not only taught his vision of the realm of God's love on earth, but he also created models of it by eating with outcasts and enemies and touching the impure to heal them. It also helps to have two plans, one for the logistical change and one for the inner transition. The disciples didn't know Christ's plans, but we do. The logistical plan is to break down every barrier to justice, to cross every stormy sea, to create the realm of God's oneness and love. And the inner plan is to turn to Jesus in the boat when we feel anxiety or grief or despair, and to turn to one another with compassion and support. We each need to know that we have a part to play in the plan. The disciples didn't get it at first, but after the Spirit filled them at Pentecost, they got it. The book of Acts and the letters of Paul show the courage they had on all kinds of stormy seas, because they knew the problem and the purpose, and they could picture the vision, and they had a plan and a part to play in it. This transformed them from a lost, grieving, really cult, to a movement that transformed the world. On March 13th, 2020, the small boat of this church got hit by a pandemic hurricane. The church council met after that Friday evening concert to decide what to do. Thanks to the collective wisdom of the council, particularly the calm and knowledge of Bill Burton, within 2 hours we had faced the problem, agreed to the purpose, painted the kind of church pictured the kind of church we wanted to be in the pandemic, formed a plan, and identified the parts that we would play. It was really extraordinary. And we were ready to step out on that strange new shore, which we did 48 hours later with our first online service. The changes and the inner transitions were not complete that night, and we made discoveries and course corrections over the coming months. We became an even closer, more beloved community as we made that long transition together. Now we face a new crossing. And you would think that leaving the pandemic time would be less stormy than entering it. But we face uncertainties and unprecedented decisions and changes ranging from rapidly evolving pandemic protocols to new ways of worship. And we are also re-entering a world that is in social and environmental upheaval. It will help the transition ahead if we form a common understanding of problems and purposes, if we talk together and work together as the council did 15 months ago. It will help if we can picture a vision of the other side that we are trying to reach, the God's realm in this time and place, how we can make it more real. It will help if we have plans and that we each see the part that we can play in our plans. And it will help if we remember that Jesus is the one calling us forward, and that he is here in this boat with us, and we can turn to him and awaken ourselves to the Spirit and find peace as we go. So let us pray in silence, asking the Spirit for the wisdom and strength we need in all the transitions in our lives, giving thanks at the same time for the grace that we have already received. Let us pray in silence. Amen.